see you. As you sit behind the wheel of your truck, we see you shake out the nerves before you pick up your hammer, your scissors, your pots and pans. As you find new ways to keep the lights on and put the pieces back together, we see you. As you straighten the rows, keep your customers safe, and crunch the numbers, we see you. As you head back to work, we see you. You've got this. We're open to help you reopen. Visit bbb.org.
Hello and welcome to this Building Trust in Trying Times webinar series. I'm your host, Dale Dixon. This is from Better Business Bureau, and it is so good to have you with us as we bring you this webinar live for BBB accredited businesses. Those are businesses that have taken a pledge to uphold a set of standards, basically to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And per our topic today, it is truly about building trust. So thank you so much for taking this time. We have an amazing webinar lined up for you today that we're so excited about because we know at Better Business Bureau that the greatest power that a business leader has lies in how they choose to extend trust to others, especially during these enormous times of disruption. So today we're going to learn how trust drives financial performance and success, multiplies performance, and how you can turn trust into your greatest asset. All of that in today's webinar with Stephen M.R. Covey. We're going to meet Mr. Covey in just moments. First of all, just a little bit of housekeeping for you. This is a live webinar and we are open to Q&A, questions and answers. Mr. Covey will be answering your questions as we wrap this webinar up. So if you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you're going to see that there is that Q&A box. Be sure that you type your question in there. That's where we'll go to answer the questions. Also, while you're looking at that Q&A box, you have the ability to upvote questions that look most interesting to you. So if you'll just click the thumbs up button, that will show us the questions that are most relevant to the most of the audience, and we'll answer those questions first. So use that upvote feature. We really appreciate it. And we've got some resources that we'll be sharing with you along the way. So the Q&A box is the place to go. If you have to leave the webinar for some reason, or but I have a feeling you're going to want to share this webinar with people you work with and with your other colleagues. This is being recorded and will be placed on the BBB website and will be available for you to share through social media channels later on. So be sure and watch for that. So without further ado, Stephen M.R. Covey is the New York Times and Wall Street Journal #1 best-selling author of The Speed of Trust, the one thing that changes everything. He's the former CEO of Covey Leadership Center, which under his stewardship became the largest leadership development company in the world. Stephen co-founded Covey Link, a consulting practice which focuses on enabling leaders and organizations to increase and leverage trust to achieve superior performance. Stephen recently merged Covey Link with Franklin Covey, forming the global Speed of Trust practice, where Stephen serves as global practice leader. Mr. Covey, it is truly an honor and so good to have you with us today. And with that, I'm going to say the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dale. And to all the accredited businesses of the BBB, I'm really honored to be with you. I greatly admire the Better Business Bureau and the whole premise of an accredited business and the idea that that enables us to start with trust. And so that tagline, start with trust, is not just a tagline, it's truly what is possible when buyers and sellers can trust each other. And the accreditation process the BBB does is a great illustration of that in action. So my topic today is on building trust in trying times. And clearly, what we're facing today is unprecedented, certainly in our lifetimes, and so much disruption, so much uncertainty, so much ambiguity. And it truly is trying times. Trust has always mattered. It's always been the currency of what makes our world go round. But it's even more true during times of crisis and disruption. If you think about it, during times of crisis and disruption like today, the greatest currency that we have is the trust that people have in us as a leader, as a business. The greatest asset that we have is our credibility, which is the foundation of that trust. And the greatest power we have as business leaders is our ability to extend trust to others. And there's a great opportunity today to extend trust in order to build trust, as well as to perform better in this challenging new environment. And so while trust has always mattered, it's even more critical today during times like today. So what I'd like to do is just briefly kind of cover 3 points. I'm going to make briefly a business case for trust and a leadership case for trust. And then I'm going to talk about how we can build that, especially during trying times, and give you a few key things that you can do as a leader. Okay, so first, here's the business case for trust. Trust is not just this soft, warm and fuzzy, soft and cuddly, nice to have social virtue. Trust is really a hard-edged economic driver because it affects the speed at which we can move, the cost of everything. And when there's high trust in relationships and teams and cultures, when you build high trust in your business, inside the organization, when you build high trust with customers, with partners, you can do everything faster and at less cost. That is a dividend, a high trust dividend. Low trust is just the opposite. Everything will take you longer. Everything will cost you more. That is a tax, a low trust tax. And if you want to, you can actually put an economic value on it. And the data is overwhelming that shows high trust organizations outperform low trust organizations by about 3 times in total return to shareholders. Far greater economic value through high trust. It's like a 3 times multiplier. So you want to have a multiplier for your business, build trust, starting with your own team, your organization, and then rippling out to all your stakeholders, to the marketplace. That's why the BBB is the leader in marketplace trust, because they're focusing on building this kind of trust externally. I'm saying also, let's build it internally with our own teams. So that's the business case for trust. You'll see about a 3 times multiplier, and you can do everything faster with less cost. Now, the leadership case for trust is the idea that trust is the one thing that changes everything. So it's a multiplier, not just for the economics, but for everything else that we're trying to do as a leader. Now, you think about this. There's so many things we got to do today, especially during a crisis. We got to be agile and adaptive and responsive and entrepreneurial to respond to this changing world. You can do all those things so much better and faster when you start with trust. Nothing is as agile as a culture of trust. Nothing is as fast as the speed of trust. So when people trust each other, you can adapt and respond to these changes that are hitting us better and faster than ever before. We need to build teams. And without trust, you're not really a team. You're just a group of people working on a project. It's trust that turns a group into a team. It's transformative to the very relationship. We need also to become collaborative and innovative. And all of those things, collaboration, innovation, they go up with trust, they go down with distrust. Not in small ways, but in profound ways. The study from LRN on innovation shows high trust companies, organizations are 11 times more innovative than low trust ones, because when there's high trust, people are not afraid to take a risk, even make a mistake, as long as they learn and get better. And you won't innovate if we're not willing to fail too. So trust helps you do that. It also enables people to move from just merely coordinating into truly collaborating. And finally, you'll really engage your people. They'll be drawn to be part of a high trust team, a high trust culture. Nothing engages people like being trusted, and nothing disengages people like not being trusted. So today we need an engaged workforce. And even beyond that, we need to inspire our people. And nothing does this quite like trust. To be trusted is the most inspiring form of human motivation. It brings out the very best in all of us. So I'm kind of combining all those things: collaboration, innovation, engagement, building teams, being able to move fast and responsive, and being agile, all to saying these are the leadership dimensions that flow from trust. So there's financial dimensions, a 3 times multiplier. There's leadership dimensions. Everything we're trying to do, we do it better. Our cultures are more energized, and it's a lot more fun to work on a high trust team in a high trust company than a low trust one. A low trust one is exhausting and no fun. High trust is energizing and enormously fun. So that's the leadership case. And my whole point here is to say trust matters. not just externally with customers and markets. I know you know that. And that's one of the great strengths of BBB, the whole idea of marketplace trust and being accredited, that you have these standards that you abide by and adhere to, and you're a good example of this. But I'm also saying, if you apply these same principles internally on our team and our organizations, we'll get enormous benefits of economics and great leadership. Now, finally, the third point is that trust is learnable, and we can build this intentionally on purpose. You can get good at building trust. And in my Speed of Trust work, I go into a long process of how you do it. So I'm going to give you just a couple key ideas right now that I think are especially relevant during a time of crisis like we are in today, that will help you build trust better and faster. And I make the point that trust comes from your credibility and your behavior. So let me highlight this on credibility. I'm going to hit a couple key things. On the credibility piece, here's what I've learned today. Credibility is your character and your competence. Are you credible? Are you trustworthy? You as a leader, your team, your business. And again, this is where the BBB standards are so useful. But think about yourself. Do you give to your team, to your business, a leader who they can trust? Is it smart to trust you? Your credibility. During a time like today, well, it's always important to focus on both character and competence. Today, as a starting point with your own people, the more you can demonstrate your intent, your caring for your people, your concern for them, because people's lives are at stake. And especially as we go through this reopening process, people are trusting us, not only with their livelihoods, but even with their lives. And so to show that you care, caring is such an important aspect of building that trust. And it flows out of your intent that you care, and you show that you care. And this helps you build trust through your character. Now, you also will build it through your competence, but I think especially right now, it's disproportionately, we're able to build it better and faster by our character, by how we show that we care about our people. So I really focus on that, caring. A second key thing I want to focus on is communicating. It's really important now more than ever before to communicate frequently, openly, honestly. And I'll tell you what, it's commonplace for people to say during a time of crisis that you got to communicate. And I agree with that. But I think what I want to highlight is how you do it. How you do what you do makes all the difference. In other words, if I communicate frequently, but I'm not credible, I'm not trusted, and I get up and spin, or get up and sugarcoat, or get up and kind of skirt the real issues, and kind of have hidden agendas and all these things, then yeah, I might be communicating a lot, but I might be digging a deeper hole. So my credibility matters, and how I communicate matters. And so I agree with communicate, and I'm going to emphasize how you do it. And I'm going to highlight 3 key behaviors that are important in our communication, especially during times of crisis like today. And the first, and these come from my 13 behaviors of high trust leaders from the Speed of Trust book. These 3 are really high leverage. First, talk straight. That means just like the BBB standards for trust, you tell the truth. You advertise honestly. 2 of your standards are right on line with this. And when you talk straight, people know you're honest. You're a straight shooter. The opposite of that is to lie, and that's not going to build any trust. We all know that. The counterfeit behavior that maybe trips us up more often is kind of when maybe you're not lying, but maybe you spin, or maybe you withhold some information, or maybe you sugarcoat the information. And here's the problem with that. If you're telling people what they want to hear, they start to recognize, hey, this is not quite the full truth. And if you're kind of sugarcoating it, they're saying, they're trying to just, paint a certain picture. They're spinning this. And people won't fully trust what you say. And you want to be known as a truth teller, a straight shooter, that you'll always tell the truth. You'll do it respectfully, but it shows great trust in people that they can handle it by telling the truth. And it really is, to the BBB standards for trust. Tell the truth, just like you advertise honestly, but you do it with your own people as well as with the marketplace. And what happens is this: you get a reputation that you will always tell the truth. And people may not always like what they hear from you, because there's a lot of tough things going on right now. So when you tell the truth, that's not always pleasant. But they have learned that they can trust what they hear from you because you'll tell the truth. And that is a great reputation to have that will serve you well as we navigate these trying times. Whereas if you're not trusted, if everyone's discounting, diluting, taxing what you're saying, then more communication is not the answer. They want more honest, they need more honesty and truthfulness. That's the answer. That's the first behavior, talk straight. The second behavior, create transparency. And again, this is one of the standards for trust from the BBB, which is be transparent, create transparency. And that means open, light I can see through versus covering up or having hidden agendas. And here's the idea: be as open as transparent as you can, and tell people what you know, and also even tell people what you don't know. Be transparent about how you can't, when you don't have answers, and what you're going to do to try to get answers. Because the whole idea here is you want people to see you as authentic and real and transparent and open. You're not hiding things from them. And even if it's, you don't have answers, that you're open about not having answers. Because we all recognize it's a new world right now. But if people know you're transparent, they'll trust you. If they think that you're hiding things or holding things back, they're wondering, what are they not telling me that they know? So be as transparent as you can. Create transparency in your communication. Amy Edmondson, the Harvard Business School professor, said this: transparency is job one during times of crisis. And then the third behavior I want to highlight is to confront reality. It means you take things head on, even the tough things. And that's what's happening right now. We have to kind of deal with the brutal facts and still have hope. Jim Collins, in his book, Good to Great, calls this the Stockdale Paradox, where he was a prisoner of war in Vietnam, spent 8 years there. He got out, and he said the great thing that he had was he had a hope and a belief that he would ultimately get out. But he also was able to confront the brutal facts right in front of him that he wasn't going to get out very soon. We don't know how long we're in this period. We're in the process of reopening. We don't know this transition period before we have vaccines or what have you. There's just so many unknowns. So those are the brutal facts. But we also have to have the hope and the confidence that we will get through this and we will come out triumphant. And so being strong on both halves of that. But we got to confront the reality. If you kind of ignore it, evade it, or just kick the can down the road, everyone knows that you're doing that, because they can read in the news or read on the internet and see what's happening. And you want to make sure that people know you're not skirting, evading, avoiding the real issues. You're addressing it, you're confronting it. And together you're trying to say, let's create a plan of how we address this. So yes, communicate, but make sure you do it where you talk straight, where you create transparency, and where you confront reality. Then the quality of your communication, the effectiveness, the impact of your communication will go up, and people will know, I can trust this leader. What he or she says, I can trust it. Finally, the third thing I want to highlight right now, and then after this, I'll take your questions, is right now is a great opportunity to extend trust to your people. I mean, think about it. In many cases, we have remote work going on, not in every case, but in many cases, and people are working maybe out of their homes for the first time, and maybe we never did that before. And you can go about this by kind of still trying to hover over and micromanage, or you can also say, this is a great opportunity to show, to both tell and to show my people that I trust you. As you work from home, I trust you. But you do it with clear expectations, with accountability. I call it smart trust. It's not just blindly trusting them. It's always extending trust with expectations and accountability. So it's a smart trust. We have an agreement, but it's a great chance to extend trust to people and to show them that you trust them. And I've seen companies do that really well, and leaders do that. I've also seen companies kind of take this virtual environment and double down on not trusting them by saying, look, you're working virtually because I have no choice right now, but I still don't trust you. So I'm going to hover up. I'm going to check on you twice as much as before. And they're actually losing trust. The reason this is so critical is that there is a reciprocity of trust. And when you give it, people receive it and they return it. And when you withhold it, they withhold it. So right now, more than ever before, we have a great chance, an opportunity to demonstrate to our people that we trust them, to not only be a trustworthy leader, but to be a trusting leader and to extend trust to our people, not blindly, but smartly, with clear expectations and accountability. And you watch, it will come back to you. People will reciprocate it. They'll also rise to the occasion. They'll perform better. And to, again, as I said earlier, to be inspired, to be trusted is the most inspiring form of human motivation. You'll bring the very best out in your people. Don't let the 5% who you can't trust define for you the 95% who you can. Build your team and your culture around the people who you can trust, and let that culture crowd out, weed out any offenders or violators. It's a better way to lead. And now is a great opportunity to do that. So those are 3 practical things you can do. First, focus on your credibility, in particular, your intent. You're caring for your people. That matters more now than ever in a time of crisis. Second, communicate, but especially it's how you communicate. Do it with straight talk, do it with transparency, do it by confronting reality, taking the brutal facts head on. And third, there's a great opportunity to extend trust to your people. And you watch, it will come back to you. You will build it when you give it. You got to give it to get it. And this is a great opportunity to really lead out in doing that. So those are some practical things you can do to build trust during these trying times. And with that, Dale, I'm going to open it up to some questions.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. Covey. We really appreciate it. Great things to act on. And as I read through these questions, I can see that we're going to be able to apply some of what we've learned in the last few minutes to some real world situations through this standpoint. So Kathy writes in the most upvoted question, taking into consideration trying times, when you reach out to people you know and your past clients, how do you start the conversation?
Great question, Kathy. My advice would be to start it by declaring your intent. That you want to serve them and you want to build a relationship of trust so that you can adapt and respond to a shifting, changing world. And when you start out by declaring your intent, that, look, I'm trying to build a relationship of trust. I'm trying to add value and I want to build a relationship of trust so that in an uncertain environment, we can work together and collaborate and innovate together. And by declaring that up front, it gives like people a pair of glasses through which they'll interpret and your behavior differently. They'll see it through that lens. When you don't do that, when you don't declare your intent, what happens is people bring their own meaning into it and they'll ascribe intent to you. Maybe they get it right, but maybe they get it wrong. Maybe they're guessing, maybe they're projecting fear and worst case. And in a tough environment like today, where there's so much uncertainty, it's very easy to kind of project fear and worst case scenarios. And our rule is no guessing, declare your intent. And it's also, you're being open, you're being transparent, you're being vulnerable. And a very act of doing that invites them to reciprocate and do it back with you. And suddenly you can start to really build high trust relationships, both with your own people, but also even with your partners and your customers. And so lead out, declare your intent, and then you go first, you model it first, and you watch, it will come back to you. Again, use good judgment. I'm not just saying blindly and wildly, be transparent in such a way that would hurt you. But if you lead out, if you declare your intent and then lead out with it, model it, you'll invite people to do the same back with you. Not everyone will, but many will. And you create a new climate, a new opportunity to succeed. So that's some advice I would give.
Fantastic. We've got a couple questions that I'm going to do my best to meld into one, and it deals with overcoming a lack of trust among leadership. So when you've got an executive team in an organization, one of the questions deals with a family-run business, and there is a lack of trust in leadership. How do you go about rebuilding trust in a situation like this, especially when you've got a crisis that you're dealing with and taking attention? And and how do you extend, what are some ways to start extending trust and building trust when you've got a group of people in leadership at the top of a business that don't trust each other?
Yeah, tough question. And there's no easy answer to it. But here's the principle, because the question is, can you, in a sense, it's kind of, is it possible to restore trust, to rebuild trust when it's not there? And that's one question. And then another question of what do you do when, it's the leadership team that doesn't trust each other? So in terms of the restoring trust, I believe in most cases it's possible to restore trust. It's not easy. And in some cases it may not be possible, but I think in most cases it's possible. But here's the key principle. You can't talk yourself out of a problem that you behaved yourself into. So if people have lost trust because of your behavior, words alone won't get it back. The only way to get it back is you got to behave your way back into trust, just like you behaved your way out of it. So we have to focus on behavior more than words to behave our way back into trust. But I believe if people are willing to do that, it's possible to do it. Now, what do you do if there's other people that aren't modeling these behaviors and they're behaving in ways that cause trust to go down? Here's maybe a practical suggestion. Try to separate the people from their behavior. And instead of attacking people by saying, hey, I don't trust you, and nobody in the company trusts you guys at all. Those are kind of strong fighting words, maybe less effective. It's far more effective to say more something like this. Hey, this kind of behavior, when you make a commitment and then don't do it, it causes me and others to lose trust. Or this kind of behavior, when you kind of spin and sugarcoat everything, and then you communicate, I'm not so sure I can trust what I'm hearing. I don't attack the person. Instead, I address the behavior. And then I might make a behavior-specific request of what would really help build trust with me. So, if you're going to make me a commitment, keep it, or else don't make it. When you talk to me, I invite you, just tell me the truth. Talk straight. I can handle it. You make a behavior-specific request, even of your boss. And what would give you the courage to do this is that your own credibility is high. You start with yourself. So that's a practical way of, rather than focusing on you're the problem, it's saying this kind of behavior is the problem, and people can choose to change their behavior. Not everyone will, but you give people a chance to behave their way back into trust.
We have the next upvoted question, and this is an interesting one. How would you recommend building trust with customers post-COVID-19, given that many of the recommended actions around how to deal with COVID have become divisive? So you've got camps that are set up, and there's a number of issues that have been divisive in the public view, social media, things like that. How do you work around those types of conversations from a business perspective with customers, clients, vendors?
Yes. If you can, again, focus on, there's always two sides of these relationships, these partnerships. You want to deliver results. You want to, make the sale, get the deal, add value, but you also want to build a relationship of trust by focusing on the things that we've been talking about. So that as things shift and change, the fact is, if you can trust each other, then you can really talk openly, and you can listen to each other. You're going to have to listen heavily. And when you listen, you're seeking to understand each other. And by the way, understanding does not necessarily mean agreeing. You might disagree. You might see it differently. You're just trying to understand. When people feel understood, they're far more open to being influenced. If you can listen, achieve mutual understanding, you'll build more trust. And then people will be more open to coming up and creating new solutions. Maybe they're different than what we were doing before. You create them together. You're innovative together. You invent them together. But the foundation of this is you have built a relationship of trust that helps you navigate the current times, but also changing times going forward. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. It's the gift that keeps on giving by having the relationship of trust. It enables you to collaborate and innovate in new and changing times. And we're going to need to do that, but I'm going to highlight listening, understanding as a foundational thing to help you get there.
Our next question from Mario: how do we use trust in messaging as we market our services? Are there any methods that we should be aware of?
Yes, I think that just like the BBB tagline, start with trust. That's powerful. And I think if you message appropriately, what you want to avoid is coming across as that slick person that says you're just gonna have to trust me. Trust me. Then and they're not open, they're not transparent about it. If you can though come in and right from the outset, you declare your intent. We want to add value. We want to be a great partner to you. We want to, be able to do this work with you together. And equally important to us is to build a relationship of trust so that we can do it again and again and again. And if we do the one and not the other, we're not succeeding. So again, it's kind of in a sense, if you declare your intent, and it's fine to say, having a high trust relationship is an explicit objective. We don't want to just make the sell. We do, but we want to also build a relationship of trust. We want you to become a client and a partner that is a referenceable client and partner. Because why? Because you trust us. And you won't do that. You won't refer us to others if you didn't trust us. We want to become that kind of client to you, and we're willing to work at it and earn it. By doing it that way, you're upfront. You're saying this matters to us, trust us. We want to make the sell, get the deal, add the value, but we also want to build a relationship of trust. And we want to earn it. We're not expecting you to just give it. We want to, do what we say we're going to do and earn it. And when you do that, that makes it safe for people to say, yeah, they're saying they want to build trust and watch my feet, watch what I do, not just what I say. I like that. I'm willing to let them do that. And that way you can kind of signal your behavior. And then when you do what you say you're going to do, you'll actually build trust faster, having first told them what you're going to do, including we want to build trust. So it's a little, you got to be careful because you don't want to have it come across as trite or artificial or as something that is excusing you from earning it. But by signaling, we want to build a high trust relationship. Here's what we're going to do. And now you do what you say you're going to do. You'll build trust faster having done those first two steps than if you just kind of skip those and just kind of always deliver, which is good, but you'll build it faster if you tell them declare your intent, why this matters, tell them what you're going to do, and then do what you say you're going to do.
So, Mr. Covey, we're past time right now. I want to be sensitive to your time constraints. Do you have time for one more question?
I do, and I apologize for going over time. I'm too long-winded sometimes in my answers.
This is fantastic. We really appreciate it. So Elaine asked, and this has been upvoted the most. So I thought this question would be really helpful to our audience because it deals with this idea of getting back to work. Was the video that we started the webinar out with. So do you believe that more companies will follow Twitter's lead of allowing employees to work remotely forever? And this is going to be a trend in the marketplace in the US and around the world. So that's a trust-based issue for culture and how we work.
My short answer is yes. I think that what's happening now will impact how we work going forward. I don't think it's going to be like it's been the last couple of months where it's heavily remote based. I think you're going to see a mix and a combination. And there's reasons sometimes why we need to be proximate and on site, because sometimes that enables greater collaboration and greater involvement and greater innovation. But there's also other situations where maybe it wasn't required. And now maybe people are seeing for the first time, we got the technology tools to collaborate and there's new possibilities. And so I think with some organizations and some businesses, some functions, some roles, you might see a shift and where you're going to see more remote work than you saw before. And in some cases, maybe substantially more. In other cases, it might be a blend where you see some remote, some meetings might be remote and other meetings you're going to still get together in person because there's huge advantages sometimes to doing that. And in other cases, it might be that it's occasional. But I think that we'll see more of a shift towards it, but it's going to run the whole gamut, and it's going to depend a lot upon the nature of the business, the nature of the functions, the roles that people are playing, and the importance of Do we need to be physically present to do our best work? Or are there alternatives where we can still collaborate through using technology tools and the like and do this remotely? And I think you're going to see more and more of it going forward, but it'd be too far to say it's all shifted to remote work. It's going to shift a lot to remote work, but I think it's going to be a blended combination depending upon things. But I'll tell you what, we'll have got there a lot faster than had we not had a crisis like this. You know, it would have been a slow evolution to get there. Right now, people are learning, hey, I've got technology tools that they work. You've got some people that have been technology adverse that are using technology and saying, hey, this is not so bad. And I know this, I know that we have the technology tools to collaborate. The real question is whether we have the trust to collaborate. That's going to be even triumph. The technology is trust is more important than the technology. The technology matters enormously, but you can't collaborate without trust. So I think you'll see some blended combination of that going forward, Dell, as we move forward. But there's no question that how we lead, how we work, how we learn will have been impacted by this disruptive crisis we're going through right now.
Stephen M.R. Covey, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for generously sharing your time for this webinar. We really appreciate it. And speaking of generosity, you have also been incredibly generous to share with our webinar viewers a white paper. So we're going to make this available to you. Mr. Covey's books, The Speed of Trust, also Smart Trust, available wherever books are sold. I'll tell you what, I mean, just aside, this is required reading inside Better Business Bureau, and it's really set the tone for the culture. So thank you for pouring your life's work into building trust. You've really helped us and hundreds of small businesses over the course of this last several minutes together. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
You are welcome, Dell, and thank you for being such an advocate for trust in the marketplace as well. We're partners on this to bring about this renaissance of trust in our world today. And I'll conclude with just this thought. While it takes two to have trust, it only takes one to start. And each of us can be that one. So I'm really honored to be with you today. I admire you, Dell, and the BBB organization. And I wish all our accredited businesses and leaders every success as you move forward with trust. Thank you.
And thank you. With that, I need to make an apology to everybody who was asking questions. We just ran out of time and I won't be able to get to all of those questions in the Q&A box, but the white paper is going to be a big help along with the books, and a host of webinars that we've been having and will have into the future are resources for you available at bbb.org, a number of resources to help business in these trying times. Thank you so much for being with BBB, for participating in this webinar. Have a great day.
Thank you.